All right, so today I want to create a new project. We're going to actually start our first iOS app. So we're going to create a new project under the File menu, New Project. And we want an iOS application, and we want a single view application. So iOS app, single view app. Hit next. We can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call mine BMI Calc lecture. And you want to make sure that we choose the Swift language. It's not by default set, so we need to set the Swift language. And the rest we can skip. And we tell it where we want to save it. And it'll create a folder for the files and the project itself. So it creates a folder, and inside of it has, well, I should have not created the tests, but these are tests that it creates for you automatically. The main thing is the Xcode project that stores all the settings, and then the files themselves. So it creates some Swift files to let us start it up, just like a Rails app or something. It gives us something to start with. So here it gives us two files that are ways of overriding some of the things that the application does. So yeah, so a single view means that it has one screen. So when you launch the app, it has one screen. You can't swipe left or right and go to another one. It's got one single screen to play with. And it gives us so this is something that we won't play with in the beginning, but it's a way of giving us little stub applications that we can add our own code to. So for instance, the application did enter background. That's a notification from the operating system that the user switched to a different app. So ours goes in the background. And at that point, we might need to save some data or something like that. So we do that in these different functions that they create for us. So we're not going to be playing with that very much.
That's actually nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Android doesn't do that.
No. Yeah, you have to create all your own there. It uses the same model view controller system that you should be used to with Rails. The view controller is attached directly to the view, and the view is the screen that we see on the iPhone. So the screen is this main storyboard, and it gives us a little graphical display of the buttons and things. We can drag and drop buttons on here and etc. But that's tied directly to our view controller. So we have typically one view controller per screen. So if we added another screen, another view, we'd have to add another view controller for that. Okay, does that make sense? And then they add a folder for assets like icons and things, a lot like the Android side. And they give us a launch screen view. So this can come up and say loading. You see games do that. They have a screen and it has a little loading bar or something like that. So that's the launch screen. And then we're not going to deal with the tests. And it will create an app for us that we can run on the emulator. All right, so let's run our emulator. So we open the developer tool under the Xcode, go to simulator, and it opens a little iPhone window, and we can change that. We can have different types of hardware. We could have go all the way back to an iPhone 4S, iPad Pro. We can choose any one of these. And the other thing is, though, that by default, the iPhone has a huge resolution. So this is the resolution as compared to my Mac here. It's huge, right? So in order to see it on the screen, we typically zoom this down to even 50% is too big. That goes off the screen, we have to scroll. So I go down to 33%. So that gives us something that's a little bit better, but the text starts to break up a little bit, obviously. But all right, so now we have that. We can try and run this and see what happens. We don't have anything on our view, so it probably will just show a blank line, blank screen. And it launches it just like in Android. Once it compiles everything, it sends the app to the simulator, and it should launch it automatically for us. There we go. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Beautiful blank screen. That's your first app. Didn't launch. Do you have the simulator open?
Yeah, I have the simulator.
Hey, that's what we wanted.
That's your first app.
All right, that's our first step. So now we can start to play around with it a little bit and add some buttons and labels and things. This is drag and drop, just like Visual Studio and a little bit like the Android. Here on the right, we have all of these panes, window panes that we open up and close, and it typically tries to show us the right things based on what file we're looking at. So if I look at the view controller, it shows us the code. If I look at the storyboard, it shows us this, and it changes the right-hand panes that are open. So way down here at the bottom, if it's not open, you click on these little navigation toolbar things here. So this one says hide or show the right-hand pane, and when it's blue, it's on, and when it's gray, it's not. Same with the left-hand pane is the project window on the left, and the bottom pane is the debugging output window that we have. So you can turn on and off all of these guys whenever you need them. So way at the bottom, we have this is the pane that we're going to work with right now. It has some file templates, so I can add a new file, like a new Swift file. I can click on this, it will add it to my project. It has some, these are called code snippets. So it has some stuff like, what would be useful?
C++.
Yeah, it does. Here's Objective-C stuff. Here's a Swift class. So I can, it tells me if I drag that to my Swift file, it will open up a new class and do some stuff for me. So it's an auto coding stuff. And then the media library just shows some things like some resources you might have in your file, icons and things. But what we want is this little square with a circle with a square in it. This is the object library that lets us drag different things on the screen, like a tab bar controller or a label. So let's drag a label on the screen, and we can drag it around, and it has lining up guides for us that come into play. They're very picky about where things go, but I'm free to put it wherever I want, because whereas like the Android layout, it's really strict to where it puts it. Yeah, it's really hard to play with. So I can double click it and say, hello world, right? Gotta have enough hello world. And I want to center it. On the left, the right again, there's this top pane lets us look at different things like quick help, tells us about the UI label, We have the properties. This is the, they call it attributes inspector. That lets us look at all the attributes about this particular label. So I have this one selected, and I can change the color of it. Maybe I want it to be blue. I can change the font. I can make it centered, aligned.
Within the label?
I'm sorry?
It'll just center line within the label.
Within the label,
Okay.
it centers the text in the label, yes. So if I had this bigger, if I made this bigger, it's still centered inside that block. But then I want the block centered also. So you drag it until that line appears, and then you've centered it on the screen. So there's other things that we'll play with later, but this is all the attributes about that particular object on the screen. Okay, so let's run it just to make sure that it still works. And we should see Hello World up here. Come on. So much better. What the heck? There it goes. Wow. So there's my Hello World.
You know, scale down so it's not.
Yeah,
still
so it's
centered.
not the right scale, but so let's. I'm going to call this. I'm going to create a BMI calculator. So similar to the Android side.
Is there a code version of the layout?
No.
Or is it all just,
No.
like an Android, you could drag
Yeah,
and
you
drop
could do
it
that.
and
It's all an
change the
XML
code.
file. Yeah. No.
So to see changes on the emulator, you have to, simulator, you have to run it every time?
Rerun it every time. Yeah. Just like an
You
Android.
have to stop it.
No, it'll stop the old one and rerun the new one.
Every time I try to run it, it says it's running an array and asking me if I should stop. I don't want to stop.
Are you running the right project?
It should give you.
You're not running your animal thing, are you?
No.
Should give you like an option to not ask you again.
Yes.
I know what he's talking
Yeah, I
about.
think I turned, you're right. There's a, if, I think I've already done that on mine. So it comes up with a box that says, one's already running, do you want to kill it? And then there's a checkbox that says, ask this every time or not. So I've unchecked that.
It's really annoying.
Yeah, it can be very
Clicking
annoying.
that button 100 times an hour.
Terminate on launch new instance.
So let's start by putting a button on the screen. So I can drag a button over here, and we can call this calculate. And let's add a text field. And let's add a label for that. So this is maybe your height. And notice how when you get close to some other control, it gives you control specific things. So they try to keep a specific space between the two things to help you align things up. They have a whole design manual about the interface of Apple products, and they try to force you into that so that you're this many pixels away from the edge always. And so it's kind of built in for us.
But it's not forced. I mean, they try to make it.
They try
but
to,
you
yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
Bastards.
All right, so there's a height, here's a calculate. Let's put a weight in there, sorry, a weight. And we can,
Copy paste.
yeah, I was thinking we can copy, if I get my stuff back right, and paste. Come on, really? Should be able to.
Put it right on top.
So height,
The alignment tools are nice.
yeah,
Pretty.
and this will be weight. All right, so there's my little layout here. I need some way to output the calculation, so we'll have another label here that might say something like the status, I'm going to put it 0.0 to start with. So that's the number of the calculation of the BMI that we're going to get based on your height and weight.
Is this the next assignment, the BMI calculator?
It's the diabetes calculator from
Like
same as
Android? Okay.
same as the Android, because most of the people are taking both classes, so it should be a little easier to switch back and forth. Hopefully. So now what I need to do, it does not do a code behind by just double clicking like Visual Studio. It has a drag and drop kind of a way to connect these things to the code. So to do that, we want to show, use this double circle up here. And what that does is it opens up a split view for us with the graphical layout on the left and the code for this, the controller for this view on the right. All right, so this is what happens.
View.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so these are all tied directly in there.
I'm guessing this is gonna feel really weird.
Yeah, it's very different. So what we do then is we need to have anything that we want to control, we need to connect to our controller. So what we do is I can either control click or right click on the text edit view here, the UI edit text, and drag it over to the right. And it only lets me put it in correct places. So we want to create something here because it's going to be a class level variable for our controller. And it comes up and says, okay, what do you want that to be? An outlet or an action? The outlet collection we won't talk about at this point, but an outlet means that I want to be able to access the data that's inside this control. So
like plugging something into an outlet, right?
right. And it calls it, so we'll call it height, text, something like that. What did I call mine over here?
But TXT height.
I just called it, yeah, you could do that. You could go back to Hungarian text height. And it's a type of a UI text field, which is what we want. And we go connect. And it creates the code necessary for that variable. Okay, so it creates this IB outlet. IB stands for Interface Builder. It's an old way that we did this layout on the screens before, and they've made it easier to do this. But it makes a var that's called text height that has a type of a UI text field.
So now if you want to alter anything with that box, you're using text height.
Exactly. That's the object. That's basically the UI text field object that has properties, and I can do actions on it, etc. Now,
too bad.
the weak thing here, Apple has gone back and forth about how they think this should be. They've gone to saying weak is the default, but now they're saying they want these to be called a strong variable. The difference between a weak and a strong is all have to do with reference counting and garbage collection, which is a complicated subject in its own right. But what it does is Apple uses what's called ARC, A-R-C, which means automatic reference counting. and that is a way of tracking objects, and if they're no longer used by anybody, it throws them away so the memory can be retrieved and used by the rest of the programs. So they don't want you to have what they call a memory leak. Do you guys know what a memory leak is?
Oh,
yeah. So a memory leak lets these pieces of code out there that the program thinks might be used, but nobody's using it anymore. And it just sits there, still defined, still has its data in it, but nobody knows about it anymore, and it starts to add up and take over your machine. Windows is notorious for memory leaks.
And they do that automatically?
Yes. So every time I make a reference to this text height, maybe in another view or something, another back-end class, it adds 1 to its automatic reference count. So it's counting, keeps getting 1 more if it has a reference to it. So it keeps one place in memory for this text field, one place, but a bunch of people might be referencing it and holding on to some properties from that text field. So when they no longer need it, and that variable that points to that text field goes away, the reference count automatically subtracts by 1. So when it gets to 0, it gets rid of it. It can now be garbage collected, meaning the operating system, the iOS, can come along and look for all of these object blocks in memory, and if they have a reference count of 0, it reclaims that memory. All right, so a weak variable means that it starts at 0, basically. A strong variable means that it adds 1 to it automatically right away. So it keeps it from being lost too quickly when you're doing subclassing and other things down below that. So that's the only thing. Now they're saying that the weak is not the default. They want them to be strong. So taking away the weak variable makes it strong.
Oh, you don't have to type strong.
Yeah, they used to have, I mean, you could do this, but they've taken that away. So that actually becomes an error now. But so by default, they're strong. Yes, so Sergey had a question.
I lost everything.
What?
I disappeared my calculator. I blank.
Weak and strong. So the weak and strong, you really don't have to worry about it too much. It used to be a big deal years ago when we had to do our own counting of the variables and the references and things like that, kind of do our own garbage collection, but they've gotten a lot better with that.
Memory was a lot more.
And it was a lot less, so you had to really worry about it. Yep. All right, so let's do the same thing for the weight. So I right-click on the weight text area, and I drag it down to the place similar to where my text height is. We'll call it text weight. It's going to be an outlet, and let's select strong, and you'll see that it doesn't put the weak in there. That's all it does. So now I've got two variables that are the objects for the text fields here. And then this is going to be a button. So we're going to put this, and instead of creating an outlet for that, we want to create an action. We want to do something when this button is created. So I'm going to drag it, instead of up here, I'm going to drag it down to where my other methods are going to go. So this will create a method, an action for this button to execute. So it's like an on-click, right? So I'm going to create, instead of an outlet, I'm going to create an action, and we'll call it calculate BMI. And the event, I don't really care what the object is. I can say that it's a button, but I don't really care because I'm not going to use really any properties of that. I'm not going to change the labels and all that kind of stuff.
But if you wanted to,
yeah, I could force it to be a UI button. Then we have, what type of event do you want to have executed when that button is clicked. So typically, there's all kinds of things. The touches, whenever they touch down, then this method executes when they do it repeatedly, when they drag. Typically, we want a touch up inside. And what that means is that you click on the button with your finger, and when you let up and you're still on the button, the method's going to activate. So that lets people click on the button, they go, oh wait,
Cancel.
I cancel. So they drag off the button and let up, and now it's not a touch up inside. And the arguments, we can have it send both the event and the object itself. I really don't need any of those, so I'm going to select none. So that creates a little method for me.
You just put in here what you wanted to do.
And I put in there what I wanted to do, absolutely. So that creates me a little function. It doesn't return anything. It's going to allow me to do something here. So let's see what I had over here.
TXT weight, per se, it comes with all the methods a box would have, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can look at, we can do something like create a variable. I'm going to call it BMI calculated variable. And we're going to assign that to the calculation for BMI, which is the weight, which is text. Let's see, just a second. It's let's do it differently, sorry. Let's create a variable called weight that is something to start with, and then we have to think that what we're getting back from this field is an optional. All right, it's always an optional. So we have to account for the fact that it might not have a value here. So right away we need to do an if let, and we have some variable, and we convert the data from text to a double, right? And we take the text height dot, what do you think the data is inside? Dot what? I want to get the data that the user typed.
Dot field.
Field string. Dot text. There you go. How about that?
Oh, man.
And we want to force that to not be an optional. And if that's the case, and I get something valid, then I want to set the weight to what?
Set it to equal W.
Yes, the local little variable that I have here.
Now, everything, by default, everything you get out of a text box can be a string, right?
Yes, yes. All input is a string. All right, any questions on that? So I've got extra code here. All right, so now we need to do the same thing for my height. So let's set a default here. And that allows me to not have to do the else statement on the if here. That I'm setting it to nothing.
So you don't have to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by default, it's going to be 0 unless they enter something that can be converted to a double.
Just one less check. It has.
Yeah. So then I'm going to do an if let L equals double. We're casting, converting this data, which is text weight, bang, which means to convert it from an optional. And then if that has a value, I want to set my height,
Weight.
weight
Sorry, I'll shut up.
Weight to be,
L.
what did I do? These are the
Right.
wrong.
Text weight.
This should be, oh wow, I got everything all messed up. So this is text height, so this will be H. This will be H, this will be height. Wow. All right, so that's height. This is going to be weight. There we go.
On the end of text weight, you need dot text.
Yes. I need to get the value because text weight is what?
It would be an object.
An object. It is this UI text field object. This guy up here. Yay! All right, so now I have two doubles. Whether they're zero or not, that's a different case. But I can do the calculations, and my calculation is weight times 703, which converts it into metric, I think. I don't remember. And then we divide it by the height cubed, which is, squared, which is height times height. It's an easy way to do that.
Is there a way to do exponential notation in code? Or is it just?
Yeah, usually, now, I haven't looked it up in Swift. Usually it's height with two splats, asterisks, and then the
your
power.
exponent.
The power, yeah, the exponent. That's usually the case. Let's try it here. I haven't looked it up for Swift, but. Yep. So it doesn't like that. So let's go Google it since you brought it up.
In all the other languages, you type in a problem in a language, you come up with the first 10 results are stacked over.
Yeah, really. Where the heck is it? Should be. It should be double. I wonder if they're that picky here. Oh, no.
Operator is not defined by Have it in parentheses, well, it also says print line.
Yeah, I know it's an older language thing, so I'll have to look that up.
I'm sure they probably changed it.
I'm sure they did.
Like grocery stores.
So
Everything.
let's just do height times height. All right, so now we have a calculation. We have BMI calc. And it says initialization of an immutable, never used. So that's fine, we haven't used it yet. That's okay. Whoa. All right, so the next thing we need to do is set the value of our label that we had. So let's go back to our view here. We want to set this label here, which was called what? What did we call it? I don't think we called
I don't
it.
think we named it anything.
We didn't name it anything, right? So, boy, we're running out of time here. What we have to do is click and drag because I'm going to do something with it. So I need another outlet, and we'll call it label BMI. How about that? So now this is a UI label object, and I can do UI label-y type stuff with it. So I can do label BMI. And what do you think the value is? Well, it shows you right away, text. And I want to assign that to the value of the double, but we need to format it. If I just say string of my BMI Calc, that will work. Spelled label wrong, didn't I? Can't have that. Like bell and label. So now if I run it, get one last run in here. Ah, I got an error. Great.
That looks like an answer.
Yeah. NS exception. All right, well, I've got the other class coming in. I got to stop. We'll do the rest of this tomorrow.
What class is after this one?
Ruby 1.